Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AFK News. I want to begin with a sound, not an explosion, not the roar of engines. Silence. Inside one of the loudest places on Earth, an aircraft factory, riveting guns, hydraulic presses, forklifts moving steel, workers shouting over machines, the constant chaos of building airplanes. Except not here. Inside Boeing's Everett factory, the largest building on Earth by volume, the noise that once defined American aerospace is slowly fading away. Walk through certain sections today, and you hear nothing at all. Empty assembly lines, idle machines, just the echo of your own footsteps bouncing off steel walls. The silence is unsettling. Not because America forgot how to build airplanes, but because political decisions made far away erased the market those airplanes depended on. If you want to understand how quickly American manufacturing power can disappear, how a single policy decision can unravel generations of engineering skill and industrial dominance, you have to understand what happened to Boeing. This wasn't a temporary slowdown. It wasn't a cyclical dip. It was a structural collapse. And the winner wasn't China. It wasn't Europe. It was Canada. A country most Americans see as a friendly neighbor, not a competitor. Yet almost overnight, Canada became one of the most important aerospace hubs in the world, while Boeing workers in Seattle paid the price. It started when the Trump administration imposed a 300% tariff on Bombardier's C Series aircraft, a jet designed for 100 to 150 passengers. The accusation was unfair Canadian subsidies and predatory pricing. The problem was the evidence was thin, and the consequences were massive. Bombardier did receive government support, but so did Boeing through defense contracts, tax incentives, and decades of NASA partnerships. This was never really about economics. It was about politics. Trump wanted a visible victory, protecting American jobs, punishing a foreign rival, and projecting strength. Boeing, one of Washington State's largest employers, pushed hard, and the tariffs were approved. Then everything collapsed. Under immense pressure, Bombardier sold 51% of the C Series program to Airbus for $1. Airbus instantly gained control of one of the most advanced aircraft programs in the world, rebranded it as the A220, shifted final assembly to Alabama to bypass U.S. tariffs, and unleashed it on the global market. What had once struggled to attract buyers became one of the most sought-after aircraft in aviation. The A220 was more fuel-efficient than the 737, more comfortable for passengers, cheaper to operate for airlines, and now backed by Airbus's global scale. The tariff didn't protect Boeing. It handed Airbus the future. Airlines that had stayed loyal to Boeing for decades began walking away. Delta, JetBlue, United, and Air Canada placed massive A220 orders, each one replacing what would have been a Boeing 737. The impact was immediate. Boeing's narrow-body backlog shrank, production targets were slashed, shifts disappeared, and layoffs followed. To understand the real cost, you have to bring it down to the human level. Meet Mike. He's 52 years old, born and raised in Everett, Washington. His father worked 43 years at Boeing and retired with a pension that built a stable middle-class life. Mike followed the same path, joining Boeing straight out of high school and spending 34 years on the assembly line, installing hydraulic systems on 747s. Over time, Mike became a supervisor, leading a team of 18 workers fitting wings onto 737 fuselages. He earned $78,000 a year with full benefits, overtime, and a pension that would have allowed him to retire at 62 with about 80% of his salary. He bought a home in Mukilteo in 1998, raised 2 children, and believed he had 10 more years before retirement. His son David had just started at the University of Washington studying mechanical engineering, hoping to follow his father and grandfather into aerospace. His daughter Emma was a high school junior, a soccer player who dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. His wife Karen worked part-time at a dental office. They weren't wealthy, but they were stable, with modest savings and a clear future. Then, in October, Mike was called into a meeting with his plant manager. 17 supervisors sat in silence as they were told Boeing would cut 737 production by 40%. Orders were collapsing, and headcount across the Puget Sound region would be reduced by 8,000 jobs. Seniority didn't matter, not even Mike's 34 years. Mike was given two options: a buyout with 24 months of severance and 1 year of health insurance, or a transfer to South Carolina to work on the 787 for $58,000 a year with no relocation support. Decades of loyalty were reduced to a single choice. After days of agonizing, Mike took the buyout. He signed the papers, cleaned out his locker, and sat in his truck for 20 minutes in the parking lot, crying. Not from weakness, but because at 52 years old, the only job he had ever known was gone. At first, Mike told himself it was temporary. He applied everywhere. 6 weeks later, he had 3 interviews. One company admitted they weren't actually hiring. One offered $22 an hour with no benefits. The third never called back. His severance would run out in 16 months, and his son's tuition alone was $32,000 a year. The mortgage was $2,400 a month. Total expenses reached $5,200, and Karen's income covered less than half. Mike began driving Uber on weekends, working late nights for a few $100s. 3 months after losing his job, the toll was unmistakable. Mike still wakes up at 5:30 every morning, but now he has nowhere to go. Arguments about money fill the house. When Emma asked about a $1,200 senior trip, Mike had to say no. She cried. David came home exhausted from working part-time, his grades slipping. Mike went to his doctor with chest pain and was told it was stress. His blood pressure was dangerously high, and his health insurance would end in 6 months. This is what economic collapse looks like at the human level. It isn't just the loss of income, it's the loss of identity, purpose, and belief that the future will be okay. Mike is not alone. Meet Sandra. She's 41 and spent 16 years at Boeing as a quality assurance inspector, responsible for ensuring every component met exact standards. She earned $63,000 a year and supported her 12-year-old daughter as a single mother. Her position was eliminated with just 2 weeks of severance. Sandra waited 6 weeks for unemployment to process, 6 weeks with no income. She burned through her savings, put groceries on credit cards, skipped car payments, and begged her landlord for an extension. 4 months later, she found work at a call center, earning $17 an hour with no benefits, and moved into a smaller apartment. Her daughter had to change schools and leave her friends behind. Sandra once certified aircraft that carried presidents and families across the world. Now she apologizes to strangers for delayed shipments. Her story is not unique. This is what happened to 8,000 families in the Seattle area alone. Now look north. Meet Jean-Francois. He's 46 and lives near Mirabel, Quebec. He has worked in aerospace for 22 years and spent the last 8 on the C Series program, now the Airbus A220. When the tariffs hit, he expected layoffs. Instead, Airbus arrived. Airbus committed billions to expand production, upgrade facilities, and hire more workers. Jean-Francois didn't lose his job. He was promoted. His salary rose, his benefits improved, and his community began to thrive. Mirabel transformed into a booming aerospace hub with new schools, research labs, and housing developments. Pratt & Whitney built massive facilities, suppliers expanded, and universities strengthened aerospace programs. Jean-Francois' son graduated with an aerospace degree and already has multiple job offers, all in Quebec. He doesn't need to move south. The opportunities are already there. The difference between Mike, Sandra, and Jean-Francois isn't skill or effort. It's geography and policy. Aerospace is not simple manufacturing. It requires decades of investment, tightly integrated supply chains, and absolute stability. Trump's tariffs shattered that stability. Once trust was broken, companies hedged their risk. They invested elsewhere. Canada offered skilled labor, political stability, and long-term support. Once aerospace investment moves, it doesn't come back. Boeing still exists, but its dominance is fading. Every lost aircraft order means fewer workers, fewer suppliers, and fewer engineers. The ripple effects stretch across entire communities. Seattle is feeling it. Plants are closing, families are leaving, schools are losing funding, and neighborhoods are hollowing out. Meanwhile, Quebec is booming. New factories, rising wages, expanding education, and growing confidence. This is the difference between economic momentum and economic collapse. The lesson is brutal but clear. In the modern economy, skill, dedication, and loyalty mean nothing if government policy destroys the market you depend on. Boeing is not dead, but it is no longer dominant. The factories in Seattle are growing quiet. The factories in Quebec are roaring. And that is the story of how American aerospace lost its future